Hey everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about ServiceNow and ControlUp. If you guys have any questions during this webinar, please feel free to use the chat feature and put your questions within the chat, and we'll be monitoring that and answering questions as we go. Let me first go over our agenda for today. We're going to start with meeting your panelists. The next we're going to do is XenTegra ServiceNow practice and kind of give you an idea of XenTegra if you're not familiar with us, and then our ServiceNow practice associated with it. We're going to learn all about ControlUp, and then we're going to talk about the better together story between combining ControlUp and ServiceNow and benefits from that, and open it up for a little Q&A. First, we want to start with meeting our panelists. So I'm Fred Reynolds. I'm the president of our modern application practice here at XenTegra. Came over here a couple of years ago, spent 26 and a half years at Avaya, where I actually was a ServiceNow customer and ran many applications for Avaya. So I wanted to come over to XenTegra and start enhance the ServiceNow practice we have, but really become a partner that I wanted to have when I was a enterprise leader as well. With me today, I brought Eddie McDonald. So Eddie, can you please introduce yourself?
Well, hi, everyone. As Fred said, my name is Eddie McDonald. I am the Director of Modern Applications. I report to Fred, and Fred and I have, our relationship goes back a long time. Avaya was one of my clients at my former employer, and we built a great relationship, and I am here with Fred trying to build something special in a ecosystem that has kind of fallen flat. So we are at a very exciting place.
And thank you, Eddie. And also we have from ControlUp, Joel Stocker. Joel?
Yes, thank you, Fred. My name is Joel Stocker. I run product marketing here at ControlUp. My history comes from a different side. So I spent almost 19 years at Citrix. Maybe some of you are familiar with that company. So I kind of like, built my career around VDI and DAS, or, I guess we didn't really call it DAS in the beginning. We didn't even call it VDI. But yeah, a few years ago, changed a little bit in a more interesting direction with DEX and ControlUp, and excited to present about that in a little bit.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe. So again, this webinar is going to be around ControlUp, their product, ServiceNow, the Now platform, and how they can work together and get the best out of both products. XenTegra. So let me first start there and do kind of my commercial. So XenTegra, hopefully you're familiar with us. We are a value-added reseller. We really want to add the value to that part. So really, we work with our customers. If you know us, you know we do a lot of events. We do a lot of things to socialize, to get out, to really do that, to connect our partners that we work with, like a ControlUp, like a ServiceNow, to our customers and multiple customers, so you guys can all learn and work together. So it's all about building those relationships and adding that value that we need to do. We provide a lot of services at XenTegra, consulting services being one of those, managed services being another, and we do a lot of assessments. And those assessments really demonstrate our knowledge, our capabilities around these products. Again, XenTegra is a multiple VAR reseller. We have a lot of products we do. So any space that you're in, any area you need concentration, I'm sure we do it. Again, in the modern apps, I'll kind of go through what I focus on. So if you wanted to reach out to me, XenTegra is global. We do have nearshore, offshore resources, as well as a government focus. And again, we have a lot of services around managed services and hosting services as well. In the modern application space, kind of what I came here to grow and build is several things I would say is in my tool bag. We continue to add as necessary, but what I really drive and work with is ServiceNow is the primary one. We resell, we do all services, we build applications, and we provide managed services. We have a domain separated instance as well that we maintain for customers. Do have Salesforce consulting practice as well, implementation and consultings. And the reason I thought that was important, I am a huge ServiceNow component, but I also know that, as an enterprise leader, I had a lot of platforms, and integrating them all together was an important thing to me, which is why we're talking to Joel today about ControlUp, because to me, integration is the key around building out workflows and getting the quality and the enhancements that you need. We do have our own application development teams, DevOps, machine learning, AI, things like that we do. And then, of course, we have some unified communication through RingCentral. We are a Zoom partner, and Red Hat and Apti as well. So keep going through our ServiceNow practice. So this is really important for you to understand if you want to have any consulting implementation needs from us as well. We are a fast growing practice. We have a very powerful team. I'm sure Eddie will come over top of me in a little bit. He's been with a couple partners. He's come over here with me now because we're building a very elite team of people who are the best in the industry. You can kind of see that down below where we have our average tenure of our architects are 12 plus years. We have architects that have been on this platform, 14, 15 years as well, but our average tenure of all of our architects are 12 plus years. Our average tenure of our developers or administrators on our staff are 8 plus years. So we have a very seasoned team. We're 80% certified across the platform itself. And we do have, in the size practice we do have a certified master architect and multiple certified technical architects. So we're very lean, we're very powerful, very agile, and we like to provide services that are tailored to our customer needs. So as we get into ServiceNow, this webinar is not really going to get into the overall Now platform and all of its abilities and capabilities, or it take us, the rest of this week to get through all of it. But I will say, as it relates to ControlUp and what we're going to talk about today, within ServiceNow and its many features and functionalities, it's really going to focus on this technology workflow space. So those of you that have, basically working ITIL, ITSM, populating your CMDB, working on incidences, problems, and automation, auto remediation, things like that is where it's going to fall into. So it's really going to fall into this technology workflow space. My view, and I kind of brought this view with me when I came here to XenTegra, is kind of my experience when I did in my former company. I thought all roads lead into and out of ServiceNow. So making a lot of integration with the back office and the tools that you're utilizing is how I think you get the most efficiency out of using a platform like ServiceNow. It's easy to cost justify and get the most out of your platform when you have a lot of integrations and you're integrating and you're creating automations that can remove a lot of the tasks that humans have to do. Before I move on, because I'm going to pass it over to Joel in a minute, just want to let you know a little bit about XenTegra, a little bit about our ServiceNow practice, and a little bit about ServiceNow and where this falls. Eddie, is there anything you'd like to add and come over top of me before we hand it over to Joel?
Well, I do want to reiterate something, and I'm glad you touched on it, about our tenure in the platform. As Fred mentioned, I came from a global elite partner, and one of the challenges that the large hyper-growing partners have is that they don't have resources. So to address that need, they get younger and younger developers and architects to lead more and more complicated projects, which typically leads to poor customer satisfaction scores. And Fred has, by design, only brought in the most senior people, certified master architects. Some of our architects have 12, 13, 14 years experience on the platform. It's a commitment that Fred has made to make sure that we stand alone in the ecosystem as a truly senior partner. Even though we're not huge, what we touch turns to gold.
Thank you, Eddie. All right, appreciate that. Joel, with this, I will stop sharing, turn it over to you.
All right.
I'm sure Eddie and I may have some colorful commentary or questions as we go. Again, we'll keep an eye on the chat. So if anybody that's joined us today would like to ask some questions, please throw it into the chat, and Eddie and I will keep a monitor on that.
And actually, if you don't mind, if you could put those questions in the Q&A, it's the button right next to chat. And what we're going to do at the end of this, we'll take all of those questions and email the questions and answers out to you if we don't get to address them all.
Awesome.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much for the introduction, and it's always a pleasure to work together with XenTegra. I know that we do many projects together, both on the side of implementing ControlUp with our joint customers, but also around ServiceNow, where we're going to talk about today. But before I'm going to go into the details about the integration and show you the integration, I want to talk a little bit about what ControlUp does, what stories we hear from our customers where they are kind of like challenged for resources, and really kind of like help you understand how the ControlUp platform helps with those challenges. And to start kind of like with where we go into customers and we talk to them, we keep on hearing the same things. It's not one thing, there is all these different change drivers, and it's probably now more so than ever. Kind of like starting a few years ago, where all of a sudden hybrid work became overnight basically the standard, but many other projects have, been added to the responsibility of the IT team, the IT operations team, across kind of like the digital workplace. And um, here are just some of them. We kind of like try to like filter out like what do we hear the most from our customers. And one of the things is this rapid pace of change. This is kind of like applies to everything, but it's also kind of like caused by certain like things like employee choice. Nowadays the end user has much more power almost over IT in how they want to work, where they want to work, what device they want to use for their work, and all those kind of things. And all these kind of like changes, and then with a new generation incoming, is just like causing a lot of things to kind of like happen at the same time. Gen AI, I mean, you can't really avoid talking about it. We're not going to talk about it a whole lot, but it is something, of course, that is very important to a lot of IT leaders to kind of like see what kind of value they can get out of AI, and for a lot of people also to find out where the value is. Hybrid workplace. In the introduction, I kind of like shared that I come from a company called Citrix. So it's always a little bit funny for me to talk about it because I've been working remotely or hybrid probably for the last 25 years in different countries, but still mostly hybrid. And but for a lot of companies, when the pandemic happened, all of a sudden shifting to these kind of like different work styles was a lot of kind of like impact. And this is still going on today, kind of like finding out, what are these hybrid workplace, strategies and implementation, etc. One thing I think we can all agree on, because you can just open any website and you will probably, if it's a regular news site or a technology news site, you will find another news story about, some breach or some, company that was maybe breached, very often through the endpoint. So evolving threat landscape, across the board is, of course, one of the things that is super high on the list of CIOs to resolve. And then at the same time, they're also being asked to do this for less. So they get all these new projects, need to do all these new things, these new technologies, but still being challenged in, doing that with either the same budget or maybe a small increase, but they have to do a lot more with the same amount of dollars. And the word experience, so when we are talking at ControlUp about the digital employee experience, it's kind of like part of a bigger kind of like experience motion at customers. It's, starts with the customer experience itself, right? How do I deliver a better experience to our customers? And then CX. But at the same time, digital employee experience, so the EX and the DEX on the other side, play an important role. Everybody's familiar with you call some kind of help desk and they say, sorry, my system is a little bit slow. That impacts me as a customer. So improving the digital experience is going to have like a positive effect on the customer experience as well. And it is really something that impacts every business, right? It impacts end users, but it also impacts the customers of the end user. So it's not that this is a new thing, but because of all these change drivers, it has become much more complex. And you also see that in the numbers. 68% of employees believe that the technology their company provides is not working effectively. I have days that it's 100%. I have days that it's 0%. But we all struggle sometimes with technology changes. I'm kind of adventurous myself. I have a MacBook and I installed like the latest beta of the new version that's coming out. Maybe not the smartest idea, but you can imagine that certain things are impacted by technology in general, and a lot of people notice that if it's not working. And this is really why we built ControlUp. ControlUp has been around for a decade and a half. And although we started very humble, just focused on Citrix and improving that digital experience so that you can improve the end user productivity, right, was in the core, right? We wanted to do it better. We wanted to make sure that we made it easier, the life of an IT support person or an IT admin. That is really something that has always been the foundation of ControlUp. We just started broadening our scope, no longer just Citrix. We now really go across any desktop, any application, anywhere. So let me introduce to you the ControlUp DEX platform. So some of the challenges that customers say when they're talking about improving the end user experience or the digital employee experience is, the amount of time that it takes to do manual troubleshooting and remediation. In general, troubleshooting and remediation is, it's a skill. It's not always easy, especially you first need to figure out what the cause is of the issue. But having to do that manually, especially for things that, might happen more frequently, is really, wasting in a way a lot of time. Employee feedback and engagement are hard to capture. So, I think most tools, they have some kind of like agent or API integration, just like ours. And that is super important. And we do that, and we'll focus on that here in a minute in real time. But those are just the numbers, right? And yes, it would be great if the numbers could tell us everything, but it doesn't always do that, right? So engaging with the end user through surveys or through other kind of ways of engaging with them and collecting their feedback completes that picture of the digital experience. What we've also seen, and this actually got worse when the pandemic happened, is that they had all these tools that worked really well, and there were already a rich set of tools that they used when everybody was in the office, right? When there was line of sight, but they added another stack of tools, when all of a sudden people had to, work remotely. Their old tools or the existing tools weren't necessarily capable of providing them that visibility. So they just started, tagging on like other tools. And, this is not only bad for your workflow, it's also costly. It's also something that you need to learn, right? Every different tool, and I have to look, okay, with this tool, I have to go for there, right? So that is a challenge that often affects the digital experience. End user needs to wait longer before they get a resolution. And all these things are taking time away from much more important projects. When I am just chasing and having to resolve manually like all these issues every day, that means that I can't spend time on important projects, like, for example, Gen AI or Windows 11 readiness that is coming next year, or at least the end of life of end of support of Windows 10. So, we really trying to help customers resolve these issues so that they are not, and I'm not talking about the employee end user only, but also IT themselves, that we can avoid them being frustrated, that the end users have to try to fix problems themselves because maybe it takes so long. Oh, I'm just going to figure it out myself. And then in result, complaining to others, maybe even leaving the company for those reasons, but definitely losing productivity in that process. So DEX, a DEX tool, is really about improving everyone's productivity, the end user, the IT person, and we do that through easy troubleshooting by, and this is an important one where we're also going to talk about today, is really giving some tools to the kind of like level 1 help desk employees so that they are more empowered to do certain things, so that these escalations to level 3 or an application owner or a desktop owner doesn't necessarily always have to happen. Tools that are integrated, tools that are working together, also an important point today, right? So we are by no means going to say, hey, ControlUp DEX is going to replace all your tools. No, there are solutions like ServiceNow ITSM that are very good at their part, right? Which is, a lot of the kind of like information about devices, about the issue, how long it's been open, the whole ticket management, all these things. So we want to make sure that we integrate with that. And then again, right, because we do that better and we give you the tools to do easier troubleshooting, that means that you have more time to spend on these important projects. So very quickly, when we talk about ControlUp DEX and how it works, it's basically about 3 different things. And we call that collect, connect, and correct. The first one is collect, which is about collecting the data. So we collect data in almost real time. So we call it true real time. So most of the key metrics are being collected every 3 seconds. There are, of course, exceptions, right? Because if we get, for example, enriched data through a vendor API, very often you're not allowed to call the API that often. But for all the kind of like key metrics on an endpoint device or a virtual desktop or DAS, a lot of them are like on 3-second intervals. And although I think any is being used a lot, this is really where it comes down to, right? It shouldn't matter if you have a virtual desktop or a physical desktop or a cloud PC, and if that's running Windows or Mac or Linux, right? This kind of like not having to worry about, what technology choices you have made in the past or making tomorrow, right? We want to make sure that we give you that end-to-end picture. And then it's about continuous monitoring. Now, this is very critical, of course, also to make sure that you can meet the demands from your end users that basically they want to work when they want to work, right? And sometimes it's at 6 in the morning, sometimes it's maybe at 10, maybe sometimes it's at night, right? The way people work in a hybrid world has changed. And, the only way to make sure that your systems are always available, that you have insight into them is through continuous monitoring. Like I already hinted, we do that through agents on the different types of desktops. We do that through APIs. We also provide availability insights through synthetic testing. Since earlier this year, we have a platform that does endpoint security scanning. So this is really about vulnerability scanning, compliance, drift prevention. And then I talked about this a little bit earlier, right? How do we get that extra information about how the employee perceives it? And that is really the only way you can do that is really by asking, for example, through employee surveys. The next C is the connecting. So we have collected the data, and now we make sure that you can connect the dots. This is all about AI-powered detection and analysis. So this is bubbling up the stuff that's relevant, because if you collect this wealth of data, we don't want you to have to go through dashboards and search for everything and like find out, okay, what does this mean? No, more and more we see how we can use AI and machine learning to kind of like bubble up the things that matter so that you can skip all these steps of getting there, but basically it is right there. How to set priorities? Well, we do that through different ways of scoring. That can start with an employee experience score, it could be a device health score, it could be a security score, but this basically kind of like hides some of the complexity of what's under it, and in an easy way can kind of like say, okay, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big is this security issue, or how big is, or how poor is this experience, so that okay, let's start with this problem first, right? So again, about making sure that you spend your time efficiently. And very important, actionable insights, right? What am I going to do with this next? Just putting data on the screen, like a lot of kind of like DEM vendors do, that's not enough, right? You want to make sure that the person, no matter if that is a very technical person or maybe someone less technical at the first line support, really have give them the understanding of what to do next. And we do that through dashboards, reports, I mentioned scoring, and the Gen AI chatbot. And then the last C is correcting the course. Correcting the course can sometimes be fixing an issue, right? Actually, being able to remediate an issue through a script, or even better, in an automated way. It is getting understanding of how your sizing is, if you're doing things in the cloud, how your cost is, and how you can further optimize the performance of your environment, but also control cost. And reducing risk and increasing compliance. So correcting the course is not always about fixing an issue, right? It's sometimes optimizing something. It's sometimes, cutting cost. So here are basically these ways where we kind of like give through script libraries and recommendations and notifications, even remote assistance, which we'll see here in a minute in the demo, right? The kind of like how we bring it all together. So collect the data, connect the dots, and correct the course. And that is something we do across, as I said, this kind of like any. Now, if you are just responsible for one aspect, that's fine, right? You can like, there's different ways of buying our products. But if you want to get full end-to-end visibility in the experience and security of what the devices and the ways employees are working, then all these options are available. So before I go to the demo, I just want to quickly kind of recap what we do with ServiceNow. Most of that you will learn during the demo, but it's really about kind of like integrating with these workflows and these tools that you already have maybe running for years, right? We are not there to become an IT service management platform ourselves. We know that ServiceNow is a big part of the market, how they kind of like handle ticketing and IT through ITSM. And we want to make sure that if we detect something or fix something, right, that automatically tickets are being created and tickets are being closed, right? If somebody would, either an automation or a human, would remediate an issue, right, it should automatically update that. But you still want to have that audit, right? You still want to know that it happened, even if a support employee never even touched the ticket. So we're going to see that in a minute. We also want to make sure that yes, you can use our UI, you can use our tools, but if you have employees that are already working in the ServiceNow UI, we can actually enrich the information with our real-time data and all those things that I just talked about right from within the ServiceNow interface. And the basic setup is very straightforward. It is available from the ServiceNow store, of course, together with our partners XenTegra. If there's anything specific you need that is not coming out of the box, and then is of course, something that XenTegra definitely can help you with. Okay, so let me just switch over and I'm going to do a quick time check here. I'm still doing good, I think. Yeah, looks like it. So I'm going to switch here and I'm just going to like make sure that you can see my screen. Okay, yeah. So this is the ControlUp text interface. In this case, I'm looking at my physical endpoint environment. I have 100 devices in this demo account. So this is what we use for our marketing demos, our product marketing and tech marketing demos. The default screen just gives you some high level widgets about how many devices, where those devices are, what are active applications that are currently running. From here, you can go to the different dashboards, and you see here also a widget that says the number of ServiceNow incidents. Now, that of course is because we already installed the ServiceNow integration. So let me just get rid of this bar here because it's. There we go. It's, as I said, available from the ServiceNow store. You can just import that, and my bar disappeared again. There is instructions on how to do this yourself. Again, if this is something that you need help with, you can definitely work with one of our partners. But once you have that done, you can basically, set it up. So most of the configuration happens on the ServiceNow side. Then I'm not going to click on reset, but basically you enter the endpoint, the key, all those kind of information to set up the connection. And at that point, well, if it's the first time, it will probably say 000, because if you just have it set up, then obviously there's no tickets directly that are opened by the platform. So let's have a look at what that would look like in the ServiceNow interface. So here you see, and I kind of like filtered it by all the HDX created tickets. And you can see that there are a bunch of them, varying dates, going back to July, some in August. And here you see actually, see this machine here, Toby PC Workgroup. So let's just have a look at that and see what's going on there. So in this case, so we created the ticket when something on the device happened. And you see here this kind of like HDX alert, high CPU load alert. So the first thing that we need to tell the system is like, hey, when do you want to create a ticket, right? So let's go back to the Edge text interface, and I'm going to go to my alerting section. And this is basically like an if this then that system, if you will. So I'm going to pick one that I already have running. And you can see this is that high CPU load alert that we just looked at. And but if I would create a new one, I can basically give it a name. Then I say the conditions. So I'm not going into all these details, but basically every metric that we collect is stored in what we call an index, or one of the indexes. So you see here in this case, the data index name is device status. And I delete this. There are many, many fields in device status, right? Information about the devices, about their networking, about CPU, about memory, etc., etc. So I can basically create a number of conditions. For example, I can say, hey, if CPU load is higher than 60%, I wouldn't recommend that number, but we do that for our demos. I can even say, hey, if it's a certain process that is like over a certain percentage, I can combine multiples. I can say if CPU load is over 60%, then, well, let's just say the battery charge remaining, nothing to do with it, but you could do it if you want to, right? So you can make a combination of these conditions. So then we have the if this. And then it's like, what is the then that, right? So one of the things is we can like call a webhook. We can call one of the scripts that come out of the script library or that you have brought in your own environment. So the product comes with a whole bunch of remediation scripts, but you can bring in your own. So if I say, okay, hey, I know this issue, right? We've seen this issue. I created a script to remediate that. Now I'm basically going to say, if this happens again, automatically fix it. In this case, that's not what we're going to be focused on. There's some other options here, but I wanted to kind of like highlight this section here, which says ServiceNow. So once I have the integration, I can basically set up one of these alerts. This if this then now, then that. If this is met, then the action that's being taken is create a ticket in ServiceNow. Then you can see that there's some options about the ticket type and the impact and the urgency, and also something that's super useful, which is the auto resolve interval. So this basically says, hey, if the condition is no longer met, right? Because, if I say like, oh, 90% CPU, right? It's probably still not an alert I would set up, but it could be temporary, right? Yes, maybe if it happens twice, right? Like, okay, create a ticket, but if the system restores itself, either because you ran a built-in remediation or because the CPU just dropped back under 90%, it can automatically close the ticket. And you see that actually that happened with this one. When I look at so these are the details from our device or from the Edge side, but you see that earlier, I think it was today. Yeah, it looks like it, and for some reason my time zone is really weird on this environment. But you see that the ticket was created, and originally, of course, it was set to new, right? So it matched that alert. So it said, okay, we create the ticket new. Then it dropped under, which was, I believe, 60% for this particular alert. At one point, it dropped under that. And it basically said, okay, this is no longer, a relevant ticket. So let's close it. Now, the interesting thing is that if it would happen again, it will not create a new ticket. It will basically reopen this existing ticket, right? So if it would be the same device, the same alert, that happens like 5 minutes later, instead of creating another new ticket, it will basically go back, oh, hey, I saw this earlier, let's reopen it again. So from here, you can see, some information about the device, about the issue. I can even click on here, and it will bring me to the device details for this particular device that had the issue. So again, right, I can, do a lot of things from here. I can see the ticket, I know kind of like what the issue is, right, what the alert was triggered, etc. If I, am trained on ControlUp, yeah, sure, I can, offer them to kind of like go here, or I can teach them how to get from this screen, right, from this map view, I can like click here and I can do like a search, right? This was the machine Toby, I can find it here as well. If you want to do your troubleshooting or your further investigation, or you want to look at the metrics or what applications are installed on this device, or all those kind of things, yes, you can do them from here. You get, of course, also get to see the ticket under this device on our end, but it's not needed. You can literally do all these things right from the ServiceNow interface. So here we see a ticket. Yes, I know it's resolved, so technically I don't have to troubleshoot it, but hey, this one is the one that's open. And you see that it has this little ControlUp icon here. So it basically triggers on some information we have in the description field. And if I click on it, you can see that it brings data on my first click, right? So I get like the device score, I get some information about the device, some of the top processes, CPU and RAM. I get that in my first click, get further expanded, and it gives me even more detailed information. So all that information that you saw here, right? And like these graphs, they look a little bit different colors, but you don't have to give your support engineers access to the full interface. They can basically use this integration. So we have the creation of tickets is one part of the integration. This works through a browser plugin. It brings kind of like that real-time information right here into the interface. Now, I can do other things. I can, for example, access these scripts that we saw earlier in the automation. I can also run these manually. So if I like, oh, hey, I know what this issue is, I've investigated it. That's always a good solution, right? Shut down the PC. But I pick one of the scripts that's relevant for this particular issue, and I can access it directly without ever leaving the ServiceNow interface. I can even do remote control or remote shadow. So if I want to just, I call the user, I have the user on the phone, I'm doing a console because then I'm not going to ask for user consent in this case. This is something that we can restrict, but there's nobody on the other side of this device. So I kind of need to do that like this. So I can even take over their screen. Oh, well, that makes sense. They're playing a video game, right? Maybe they shouldn't be doing that during work, but that is the reason why we had this high CPU. I don't even know what game this is, some Star Trek game, I think something like that. Now I can pop this one out or I can minimize it because if I want to run a script, then obviously I want to go here. This is a very easy one. I'm just going to see, okay, it was CPU memory. Well, it's, we saw this Prime app was the culprit. So we're just going to go here and we're just going to, let me just click there. I'm just going to kill the process, right? So if you now see here, right, it killed it. It's back at the kind of like home screen of the game. So it killed the game. It will start automatically. That's just our demo setup. But as you can see, without actually having to leave the ServiceNow interface in the context of this particular ticket, I can do directly all the real-time troubleshooting and remediation, even remote control into the device, so that I can improve my workflows when helping end users.
Hey, Joel, when you're helping those end users and doing that work, is those actions captured within the incident as well?
Yes. So if I would run a script, it will update that with the information how the issue was resolved.
That's really so powerful. So you have that, and honestly, I'm blown away with that the capabilities going through. I didn't even. It's just educational for me to see like how much capabilities you have going through to do auto remediation or troubleshooting. Because truthfully, if you know those things, that's where the power of the ServiceNow platform, the event management, and then honestly workflow and automation. I think you can do a lot of those things without having human interactions. If you know it's a common thing, then you can probably address those things in one full swoop, capturing it in the instance to go back and have a record of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is kind of like, when I talk to customers, right? Hey, the perfect world, everything would be automated, automatically fix it, self-healing, right? Everybody talks about self-healing. That's the summum, right? The reality is, if an issue happens for the first time, you probably don't have an automation, right? So, and I kind of like went to these different levels, right? I showed like, hey, in a perfect world, we have this automation, it automatically fixes it, it updates the ticket, poof, right? I know about it, but I didn't have to do anything. Then there was the kind of like, okay, I can run a script, right? I can like manually fix an issue. And then there was the third option, like if everything else fails, let me do remote control and see what's going on,
Yeah, it's
right?
beautiful. And the fact that you can have a service desk to have that capability to your fingertips without having to leave it, that is so powerful. That's so much time savings there. So that is really incredible. I honestly should have known that maybe, Joel, but I'm very impressed of how well that integration works.
Yeah, and we have a lot of satisfied customers. So I wanted to kind of like end with this slide from my end, right? And I'll be here for any questions. This is really where let me just minimize this one, where we are trying to bring the value for those people who are online. Okay, hey, yeah, great, another tool. Well, we're going to reduce your MTTR, right? These tools that you see, optimizing your workflows, having faster ways of fixing issues, and of course, a more autonomous operation. At the end of the day, happy user, happy life, right? If they don't call you, things are going well. But delight them with a predictable employee experience. That is really where it's about, without compromising on security. And at the end of the day, it is about reducing costs, right? We, of course, reduce costs by improving productivity, less time on a call with support. But there's also other ways, including the number of tools that you need, right? You saw here, ServiceNow, ControlUp, you almost have it all, right? They're together. So that's really where I wanted to kind of like leave my story. And let me just stop sharing so that we can see each other and bring it back to you.
I have a couple of comments just based on what you showed. I just don't want to underestimate the power of that integration in that way, because coming from an enterprise and having a couple of thousand, people working not service desk but working incidences, and having the ability to go pull up that incident and then be able to click through to get the information and troubleshoot, that's such a time saver. The other thing, Joel, is I know on the ServiceNow store, I don't know if you covered this, but ServiceNow store, you guys have a application that's already there built and does the integration for you out of the box. A little bit of tweaks, I'm sure, and that's for a couple of versions that you have. And before you go into it, explain it more. I would say that why XenTegra is here. One, I always consult and push people to say use the app or the store, right? It has its purpose. It has built-in workflows. But for things that are not there out of the box from those workflows, or for product versions that you have that you don't have the app to support, we can build those for our customers and do those API integrations and get the same value from that. So any comments there, Joel?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? So I'm dependent on a developer instance, right? And as you might know, the developer instances from ServiceNow suddenly disappear. If you don't, for the last couple of weeks, every day I've been making sure that it's still alive, because leading up to this, for us it's a budget thing, but so I have set it up a few times, and yeah, there's a couple of steps you need to go through, right? Because there's like the key, and like, there's some nuances, but it is fairly out of the box. I think you can do it in like, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes if you're, it takes me 20 minutes, and I'm not a ServiceNow person, right? So,
Yeah.
but what you say as well is like, hey, yes, there are these out of the box capabilities, but every customer has a little bit different, right? Everybody needs their own little thing. So we have full open APIs, and you as a partner, of course, XenTegra can help customers to kind of like find those particular touch points where they need maybe some help.
I think those next steps and where we add value is that we've done this, right? The people on our staff, the fact that Eddie really re-emphasized how veteran we are. I mean, what I did run was a managed service practice, and I had multiple tools integrated, millions of raw alarms coming at us. And in this state, we can advise too how to stack those, what ends up being a problem and things, how to organize some of that on the ServiceNow side. But again, a great presentation, Joel, great demo. Like I said, I was pleased at how much I actually learned from it. And I have seen a demo of y'all's your application when you guys developed it, but I think I must have been getting slow because I lost some of that power of that click through. So maybe I didn't see it, but awesome. Eddie, any comments from you?
No, not right now. I do want to reiterate what you said about the app on the store. That's always the easiest way to move forward. It's been tested to death, and it's not an easy. We all put. Well, I know Fred, you and I have put an app on the store. It is an exercise in patience to go through those hoops. So no, I agree with that fully.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah, and I guess the one thing that I want to leave people with who are on the call, obviously, if you want to learn more, we do offer a full 21-day unrestricted trial. We can help you set it up. You can do it yourself. Whatever works for your model. And of course, XenTegra can help as well. So if you want to learn more, there are, we're here with the ServiceNow specialist, but there's also some really smart ControlUp specialists, right? And they are more than happy to tell you more, or go to controlup.com.
That's awesome, Joe. Yeah, I would say the customers we've worked collectively together, some that have to pull it off the store app, some that we've done custom API integrations with them. I mean, they're very happy customers. So seeing the real value of ControlUp. And obviously, I think, ServiceNow is such a huge platform, so many capabilities and features, right? Everybody doesn't know all of them. And so it takes some specialty to get it done. So I don't see any questions in the Q&A. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. So we'll give it one final chance for those that are attending to ask a question, raise a hand. If not, we'll close it down.
All right.
Again, Joel, thank you for your time, your preparation, and keeping your demo instance alive until you could do this demo. And
yeah, I sleep better now. Now it can I can do it again, the installation. So
hey, next time let us know. We have several demo instances that we actually keep and run, so we can just do it there. I'm pretty sure we use it here, so we probably could have just used our own environment.
well, I'm sure you do. Yeah.
Cool. Eddie, any final thoughts?
Nope, I think you covered it all. And Joel, fantastic job. Thank you, buddy.
Very good. Indeed.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, y'all.